You wake in the still of the night to an odd sensation. Your arm feels heavy, almost numb. As you try to sit up, you realize your speech is slurred. In just minutes, you're being rushed to the emergency room, the flashing lights of the ambulance cutting through the darkness. The doctors confirm what you feared, a stroke. But here's the shocking part. The cause wasn't high cholesterol, years of smoking, or uncontrolled diabetes. It was something far more subtle and far more common among seniors, a healthy nighttime snack. For decades, we've been told that eating a small snack before bed can help prevent late-night hunger, steady blood sugar, or simply make us feel comforted. Many seniors choose something that seems harmless, even beneficial, like a handful of mixed nuts, a piece of dark chocolate, or a slice of cheese with fruit. These choices are often marketed as brain-boosting, heart-healthy, or rich in good fats. But what's rarely discussed is how certain snacks, when eaten just before sleep, can silently change the chemistry of your blood and brain while you rest. As a brain doctor, I've seen too many cases where seniors, convinced they were making a smart health choice, unknowingly triggered a dangerous cascade in their bodies during the night. The quiet hours of sleep are when your brain relies most heavily on stable blood flow and oxygen delivery. Unfortunately, the wrong snack can thicken your blood, elevate your nighttime blood pressure, or cause a sudden sugar spike, all of which dramatically increase your risk of a clot forming. And here's the most dangerous part. If that clot lodges in a vessel supplying your brain, it can lead to a stroke before you even open your eyes in the morning. One of my patients, Mrs. Eleanor, age 72, believed she was doing everything right. She walked daily, kept her weight stable, and avoided junk food. But every night, after reading in bed, she'd have a small bowl of salted almonds and dried cranberries. She thought the nuts provided healthy fats, and the cranberries gave her antioxidants. What she didn't realize was that the sodium in the nuts was pushing her blood pressure higher at exactly the wrong time, during the slow, restorative phases of sleep, while the sugars from the cranberries were flooding her system, inflaming her blood vessels. The combination created the perfect storm for a clot to form. Before we dive deeper, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. Tonight, before you reach for that healthy treat, I want you to know the truth. Because some of the most common bedtime snacks, the ones you think are helping your heart and brain, may actually be setting the stage for a life-altering stroke. And it's not just one food. There are 9 major culprits I see in my practice. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 9 common foods that could be quietly increasing your stroke risk overnight. Starting with one that might already be sitting in your pantry right now. Your brain is an incredibly demanding organ. Even though it accounts for only about 2% of your body weight, it consumes roughly 20% of your body's oxygen and energy at rest. During the day, your heart and blood vessels work in harmony to deliver a steady supply of oxygen-rich blood. But after the age of 60, that system begins to change, and not in your favor. One of the most significant changes is a gradual stiffening of the arteries. This process, known as arteriosclerosis, means your blood vessels are less able to expand and contract as needed. When this happens, sudden increases in blood pressure, like those caused by high sodium or high sugar snacks, put much more strain on the vessel walls. Over time, this can weaken them and make them more prone to damage or rupture. Another key factor is circulation speed. As we age, the efficiency of the heart's pumping declines slightly, and blood flow to the extremities, and even to the brain, can slow. This is especially true during sleep, when your heart rate naturally drops. If your blood becomes thicker or more viscous during this time, which can happen due to dehydration or certain foods, it increases the risk of clot formation. Let me share a case from my practice. Mr. Harold, 68, was a retired electrician who prided himself on his disciplined lifestyle. He drank plenty of water during the day, exercised regularly, and took his prescribed medications. But he had a habit of sipping a warm mug of sweetened milk tea just before bed. He believed it relaxed him and helped him sleep better. The problem was that tea contained a significant amount of sugar, which caused a rapid spike in his blood glucose, followed by a crash. This fluctuation, combined with the natural slowing of circulation at night, contributed to an environment where small clots could form more easily. Biochemically, this comes down to what happens inside your blood vessels when glucose levels surge. Excess glucose can cause inflammation in the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of your arteries. This inflammation can make the vessel walls stickier, which allows platelets, the cells that help your blood clot, to clump together more readily. If one of those clumps forms in a brain-supplying artery, it can block blood flow in seconds. And let's not forget dehydration, something many seniors underestimate. Even mild dehydration can make your blood more concentrated. Combine that with an evening snack, high in sodium, sugar, or caffeine, and you've set up the perfect conditions for a clot to form while you're sleeping. So when we talk about why aging brains fear blood clots, it's not just about existing medical conditions like atrial fibrillation or high cholesterol. It's also about the natural changes in your body's vascular system and blood chemistry after 60, changes that make every nighttime choice more important than ever. If you think this is concerning, wait until you hear about one of the most common healthy snacks seniors eat, a food that seems heart-friendly but can quietly push your nighttime blood pressure through dangerous levels. That's where we begin in the next section. Salt is one of the most underestimated stroke triggers in seniors, and the danger isn't just from chips, pretzels, or canned soups. It's hiding in places you might least expect, including one snack often praised for its healthy fats and brain-boosting properties, roasted or flavored nuts. Almonds, cashews, pistachios, and peanuts are all nutrient-dense, offering protein, magnesium, and beneficial monounsaturated fats. But when they're roasted and seasoned, even lightly, they can contain alarming amounts of sodium. For a senior's circulatory system, that extra sodium isn't just a number on the nutrition label. It's a silent force that pushes blood pressure upward, especially dangerous during the hours when your blood vessels should be in their most relaxed state. Here's why this is so concerning. Blood pressure naturally dips during sleep, giving your heart and arteries a much-needed rest. This nightly dip is critical for preventing long-term vascular damage. However, high sodium intake before bed can blunt or even reverse that dip, causing your blood pressure to remain elevated all night. That constant pressure against stiffened arteries can weaken vessel walls and encourage tiny tears, which can become breeding grounds for clot formation. I recall the case of Mr. Raymond, a 66-year-old retired carpenter. Every evening, he would sit in his recliner, watch the late news, and enjoy a small bowl of honey-roasted peanuts. He told me he measured them carefully, thinking portion control kept him safe. But each serving packed over 200 milligrams of sodium, and he often refilled his bowl once or twice without realizing it. Over time, his blood pressure readings crept higher, and one winter morning, he suffered a transient ischemic attack, TIA, often called a mini-stroke. While he recovered physically, the scare left him shaken. When we reviewed his diet, those nightly nuts stood out as a key contributor. Beyond sodium, some flavored nuts contain additional compounds that can affect vascular health. MSG, monosodium glutamate, often used in seasoning blends, can cause temporary vessel constriction in sensitive individuals. Excessive flavor coatings, sweet chili, honey glaze, or barbecue, not only add more salt, but also introduce sugar, compounding the inflammatory impact on arteries. Biochemically, sodium pulls water into your blood vessels, increasing blood volume and pressure. For a senior with reduced arterial elasticity, this extra volume acts like a high-pressure hose on an old, brittle pipe. Eventually, something gives, and if that something is a vessel in your brain, the consequences can be catastrophic. What makes this even trickier is that roasted nuts are marketed as heart-healthy, thanks to the presence of omega-3 and omega-6 fats. And in moderation, without the excess sodium, they can be. But timing matters. Eating high-sodium snacks right before bed means your body has no opportunity to process and excrete that salt before your most vulnerable hours of rest. So, the next time you reach for that small handful of roasted nuts before bed, think about the hidden salt you're feeding your arteries. If the idea of nuts raising your stroke risk surprises you, wait until you hear about another so-called healthy snack, one that's even more deceptive because it's marketed as pure, natural, and wholesome. But for seniors, it can launch a sugar attack on your blood vessels while you sleep. When most people think of a wholesome snack, dried fruit often tops the list. After all, it's fruit, nature's dessert, packed with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. But for seniors, especially those over 60, sweet dried fruits like raisins, dates, figs, and dried mango can quietly launch a metabolic attack on your blood vessels during the night. The danger comes from two factors: concentrated sugar and the way it interacts with an aging circulatory system during sleep. Fresh fruit contains water, which dilutes its natural sugars. When fruit is dried, that water is removed, but the sugar remains and becomes far more concentrated. A single cup of raisins, for instance, contains more than 80 grams of sugar. That's like drinking several cans of soda, but without the liquid volume to make you feel full. Here's why this matters at night. As you sleep, your metabolism slows, your insulin sensitivity drops, and your body becomes less efficient at handling sudden sugar loads. That means the glucose from dried fruit lingers in your bloodstream longer, causing prolonged high blood sugar. Elevated nighttime glucose inflames your endothelium, the thin lining of your blood vessels, making them more sticky and prone to attracting clot-forming platelets. One patient who learned this the hard way was Mrs. Linda, age 70. She loved her nightly ritual, a cup of herbal tea and a small ramekin of dried apricots and figs. She believed the fiber and potassium supported her heart health, but she began experiencing early morning headaches and occasional blurry vision, subtle warning signs of nighttime blood pressure spikes. When we checked her continuous glucose monitor, the readings were clear. Each evening, snack caused her blood sugar to spike sharply, remain elevated for hours, and drop suddenly in the early morning. This roller coaster stressed her vascular system and increased her risk for both clotting and small vessel strokes. Biochemically, sugar triggers inflammation and oxidative stress inside the arteries. At night, when your body should be repairing tissues and reducing stress hormones, this constant glucose surge forces your cardiovascular system into overdrive. Add to that the fructose in dried fruit, which is metabolized differently from glucose, placing additional strain on the liver and contributing to higher triglyceride levels, another risk factor for vascular disease. It's also worth noting that many commercially dried fruits are treated with sulfites to preserve color and shelf life. While generally safe in small amounts, sulfites can cause blood vessel constriction in sensitive individuals, compounding the problem for seniors with already reduced vascular flexibility. The real trap is the health halo around dried fruits. They're often marketed alongside superfoods, placed in the same aisle as organic snacks, and promoted as a natural energy boost. And while they can be part of a healthy diet when eaten in small quantities earlier in the day, consuming them right before bed is like pouring sugar into your bloodstream just as your body is preparing for its most restorative state. If you thought the sugar in dried fruit was concerning, you'll be even more surprised by our next snack. A creamy, savory food many seniors consider a harmless indulgence before bed. It's rich in calcium, comforting in texture, and capable of sabotaging your blood pressure while you sleep. Cheese, smooth, creamy, and comforting, is a bedtime favorite for many seniors. It feels like a small indulgence, a satisfying way to end the day. Rich in calcium and protein, it's often promoted as a bone-strengthening food. But what most seniors don't realize is that cheese can quietly raise nighttime blood pressure and stiffen blood vessels, creating the perfect conditions for a stroke while you sleep. The issue starts with cheese's nutritional makeup. Even small servings are high in saturated fat and sodium. A single ounce of cheddar, for example, contains around 180 milligrams of sodium and 6 grams of saturated fat. These numbers might not seem high at first glance, but for an older circulatory system, especially one already facing reduced elasticity in the arteries, they can have outsized effects. Saturated fats influence blood viscosity, the thickness of your blood. When blood becomes thicker, it flows more slowly, and the heart must work harder to pump it through narrowed vessels. Combine that with sodium's effect of drawing water into the bloodstream, increasing blood volume and pressure, and you have a double burden on the heart and arteries during sleep when they should be recovering. I remember treating Mr. Francis, a 71-year-old retired teacher. Every night, he would enjoy a few slices of brie with whole grain crackers. It was his way of relaxing after watching the evening news. Over time, he noticed his morning blood pressure readings were consistently higher than his daytime readings. One winter, he suffered a mild stroke that affected his speech for several weeks. After reviewing his diet, we identified the nightly cheese habit as a contributing factor. The combination of saturated fat and sodium was quietly undermining his vascular health each night. There's also the casein factor. Casein is the primary protein in dairy, and while it's not inherently harmful, it digests slowly and can slightly increase insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1, in the blood. Elevated IGF-1 has been linked to vascular inflammation in certain studies, though the connection is still under investigation. More importantly, slow digestion means your body continues processing fats and proteins deep into the night, at a time when your metabolic rate is naturally lower. Cheese's rich, savory taste can also trigger overconsumption. Many seniors think just one more slice won't hurt, but it adds up. And because cheese is calorie-dense, it can contribute to gradual weight gain, another significant risk factor for stroke and heart disease. Biochemically, here's the nighttime danger. Sodium elevates blood pressure, saturated fats increase blood thickness, and both together force your heart to pump harder against resistant aging arteries. That strain can weaken vessel walls or dislodge small plaques, potentially leading to a clot that blocks blood flow to the brain. The healthy reputation of cheese comes from its calcium, protein, and vitamin B12 content, and yes, those nutrients are beneficial. But the timing of consumption matters. Eating cheese earlier in the day, when you're more active, gives your body time to metabolize the fat and excrete the sodium before the vulnerable overnight period. If you think cheese sounds risky, wait until you hear about the next bedtime snack. It's a favorite among health-conscious seniors, often chosen for its antioxidant reputation, but it hides a stimulant that can keep your blood vessels on high alert all night long. Dark chocolate has earned a reputation as the guilt-free dessert. Rich in antioxidants, particularly flavonoids, it's often touted for its heart and brain benefits. You'll find countless articles praising its ability to improve circulation, lower inflammation, and even boost mood. But what's often left out of the conversation, and what I've seen repeatedly in my older patients, is that dark chocolate can also act as a hidden stimulant, quietly stressing your vascular system during the hours when it should be resting. The two main culprits are caffeine and theobromine. While dark chocolate has less caffeine than coffee, it can still contain anywhere from 20 to 70 milligrams per serving, depending on the cocoa content. Theobromine, a compound similar to caffeine, has a longer half-life in the body and can remain active for 6 to 12 hours. Both substances stimulate the central nervous system, increase heart rate, and cause mild vasoconstriction, narrowing of the blood vessels. For younger adults, this effect might be minor, but in seniors, especially those with already stiffened arteries, these stimulants can keep blood pressure elevated throughout the night. And because your brain depends on consistent, low-resistance blood flow during sleep, this added pressure and constriction can make it harder to maintain optimal oxygen delivery to delicate brain tissue. One patient who illustrates this risk is Mrs. Caroline, 69, a retired librarian. She prided herself on avoiding late-night desserts, heavy in sugar or fat, and instead would enjoy a square or two of 85% dark chocolate after dinner. It seemed like the perfect compromise, low in sugar, high in antioxidants. But over several months, she began waking in the middle of the night with a racing heartbeat and occasional headaches upon waking. When we reviewed her habits, we realized her chocolate treat was keeping her sympathetic nervous system active long into the night, subtly raising her nighttime blood pressure and heart rate. From a biochemical standpoint, caffeine and theobromine increase the release of catecholamines, stress hormones like adrenaline, which signal your heart to beat faster and your blood vessels to tighten. This is the opposite of what your cardiovascular system should be doing while you sleep. Instead of resting and repairing, it's still on alert. In an older vascular system, this can increase the likelihood of a small clot becoming lodged in a narrowed artery. There's another subtle risk. Dark chocolate also contains small amounts of tyramine, an amino acid that can trigger constriction in certain blood vessels. For people sensitive to tyramine, especially those on certain blood pressure medications, this can lead to sudden spikes in pressure. Now, this doesn't mean all dark chocolate is bad, But timing and portion size matter enormously. If you enjoy it, have it earlier in the day, preferably before mid-afternoon, so the stimulants have time to clear from your system before you sleep. What surprises many seniors is that a snack they thought was helping their heart could be subtly sabotaging it at night. And if you think dark chocolate's hidden caffeine is a problem, wait until you hear about our next nighttime food trap. A leftover favorite that seems harmless, but can send your blood sugar on a dangerous overnight roller coaster. Leftovers, they're practical, economical, and often taste even better the next day. Many seniors, especially those living alone, save portions of dinner to reheat later as a light evening meal. But when those leftovers are high in refined carbohydrates, like rice, pasta, or bread, they can set off a dangerous chain reaction in your body during the night. The problem lies in the way refined carbs break down quickly into glucose. Eating a bowl of reheated spaghetti, a plate of fried rice, or even a couple of slices of bread before bed causes a rapid spike in blood sugar. This might make you feel pleasantly full and sleepy at first, but as you rest, your insulin works to bring that sugar back down. If the drop is too steep, your body may respond by releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline to stabilize your blood sugar. For seniors, this glucose spike and crash cycle is more than just an inconvenience. It puts significant stress on the cardiovascular system. Sudden rises in blood sugar cause inflammation in the lining of your blood vessels, while the subsequent drop can trigger constriction in the smaller arteries, including those feeding your brain. Both conditions, inflammation and constriction, increase the likelihood of clot formation. I recall a case involving Mr. Dennis, 74, a retired bus driver. Every evening, he'd heat up a small plate of leftover white rice with soy sauce and a fried egg before bed. It was his comfort food, a tradition from his working days. But over time, he began experiencing early morning dizziness and occasional lightheadedness when standing up. When we monitored his glucose levels overnight, we saw the pattern clearly. A sharp spike shortly after eating, followed by a steep drop in the early morning hours. This instability was putting his brain's oxygen supply at risk while he slept. Biochemically, large nighttime carb loads cause a surge in insulin production at a time when your body's sensitivity to insulin is naturally reduced. That means your system has to work harder to manage the sugar, prolonging the period of elevated glucose. For someone over 60, whose blood vessels may already be narrowed or stiff, this combination of high blood sugar and subsequent hormone-driven constriction can be dangerous. Another overlooked factor is the way leftovers are often prepared. Reheating starchy foods can increase levels of something called advanced glycation end products, AGEs, compounds formed when sugars bind to proteins or fats. AGEs contribute to oxidative stress and stiffening of blood vessels, problems already magnified by age. It's important to note that not all carbs are equally risky. Complex carbohydrates from whole grains, beans, or vegetables digest more slowly and cause gentler blood sugar rises. The problem is with refined carbs, especially eaten in large portions before bed when the body is least prepared to handle them efficiently. If you thought leftover carbs were just a harmless comfort, think again. And if you think this is a hidden risk, wait until you hear about the next nighttime snack. One that seems tangy and refreshing, but hides preservatives and compounds that can quietly squeeze your blood vessels as you sleep. Pickled snacks, from crunchy dill cucumbers to briny olives and tangy kimchi, are beloved by many seniors. They add flavor, stimulate the appetite, and often bring back memories of traditional meals. Many believe these foods are harmless, even healthy, because they contain vegetables and, in some cases, probiotics. But what often goes unnoticed is how their sodium content and chemical preservatives can quietly work against your brain and heart during the night. The first concern is sodium, and pickled foods are some of the saltiest items you can eat. A small serving of pickles can contain more than 300 milligrams of sodium, while a handful of olives can easily surpass 400 milligrams. For a senior, whose arteries may already be stiff and narrowed, this influx of salt before bed draws water into the bloodstream, increasing blood volume and raising blood pressure at the exact time it should be dropping for restorative sleep. But sodium isn't the only issue. Many pickled products, especially commercially prepared ones, contain nitrates or nitrites. These compounds help preserve color and prevent bacterial growth, but they can also affect the blood vessels. While in some cases nitrates can dilate vessels when converted to nitric oxide, in others, especially when combined with certain amines in food, they can form nitrosamines, which are linked to vascular inflammation and damage. In sensitive individuals, the overall effect may be constriction of small arteries, reducing blood flow to critical areas like the brain. I remember a patient, Mrs. Greta, 73, who loved her nightly snack of olives and cheese. She believed the olives were a healthier choice than chips or cookies, but over time she began waking with pounding headaches and occasional blurred vision. A review of her diet revealed that her bedtime snack often exceeded 800 milligrams of sodium. When she cut the olives and pickled vegetables from her evening routine, her morning blood pressure readings dropped significantly and the headaches disappeared. Biochemically, excessive sodium increases osmotic pressure in the bloodstream. This draws fluid from surrounding tissues into the blood vessels, effectively overfilling them. For a senior with less flexible arteries, this can result in heightened strain on the heart and increased risk of a vessel wall rupture or a clot breaking loose. If that clot travels to the brain during the night, the result can be a stroke before you ever wake up. Another hidden danger is the vinegar base used in many pickled products. While vinegar itself isn't harmful for most people, consuming acidic foods right before bed can lead to reflux, disrupting sleep and causing microarousals that keep your cardiovascular system from fully relaxing. Chronic sleep disruption is another factor that raises stroke risk in older adults. The healthy image of pickled foods often comes from their probiotic potential. And yes, traditionally fermented options like kimchi or sauerkraut can be beneficial in moderation. But the problem is timing and portion size. Eating a small serving earlier in the day may be fine. Loading up right before bed is a different story. If you think pickled snacks are surprising, wait until you hear about the next food on our list. A drink that seems fresh and full of vitamins, but can flood your bloodstream with sugar, thickening your blood, and straining your heart in the middle of the night. Fruit juice. It's marketed as pure, natural, and packed with vitamins. Many seniors drink it, believing it will boost immunity, provide hydration, and support overall health. And while juice does deliver vitamins like C and potassium, it can also deliver something far more dangerous at night: a concentrated surge of sugar that can quietly strain your cardiovascular system while you sleep. Here's the problem. Even 100% fruit juice contains no fiber to slow the absorption of sugar. When you drink a glass of orange juice, apple juice, or even pomegranate juice, you're essentially giving your body the sugar from multiple pieces of fruit in a single gulp. For example, an 8-ounce glass of orange juice contains about 21 grams of sugar, roughly the same as several cookies, but without the fat or protein to slow digestion. At night, your body's insulin sensitivity is naturally lower, meaning it's harder to process and store that sugar efficiently. The result is a rapid spike in blood glucose that lingers longer than it would during the day. Elevated nighttime glucose leads to increased blood viscosity. Your blood becomes thicker, which raises the risk of clot formation. In seniors with narrowed arteries, this can be a dangerous setup for a stroke or heart event. One of my patients, Mr. Howard, 70, learned this the hard way. He had switched from soda to grape juice in the evenings, thinking it was a healthier choice. But after several months, he began waking with morning headaches and occasional tingling in his fingertips. Continuous glucose monitoring revealed that his juice habit was causing prolonged high blood sugar overnight. The added stress on his blood vessels was contributing to inflammation and early signs of neuropathy. Biochemically, the high fructose load in fruit juice can also overwhelm the liver, converting excess sugar into triglycerides, fats that circulate in your bloodstream. Elevated triglycerides are another major risk factor for vascular disease, and because juice is liquid, it doesn't create a strong feeling of fullness, making it easy to drink more than you realize. Another overlooked issue is that many juices, even those labeled natural or no sugar added, are still pasteurized, which can slightly reduce certain heat-sensitive antioxidants while concentrating sugars further through evaporation during processing. This means you're often getting less of the protective compounds and more of the risky elements. The healthy perception of juice is so strong that many seniors don't think twice about having it before bed. sometimes even as part of a light nighttime routine to avoid heavier foods. But what seems like a safer choice can actually be one of the most harmful, especially when combined with other evening habits that raise blood pressure or blood sugar. Now that we've gone through the 9 major nighttime snack culprits, we'll end by focusing on what you should eat instead. Foods that support brain and heart health without increasing your risk while you sleep. In the final section, I'll give you safe, satisfying alternatives, clear eating guidelines, and a way to protect your brain for years to come. You've just heard about 9 seemingly harmless nighttime snacks that can quietly work against you while you sleep, raising blood pressure, thickening your blood, and increasing your risk for stroke. For seniors, these risks are amplified by natural changes in the body, stiffer arteries, slower circulation, and reduced metabolic flexibility. But here's the good news. With the right choices, you can still enjoy an evening snack that supports both brain and heart health. First, let's recap the key principle. Aging changes how your body responds to food, especially at night. Your blood vessels are less elastic, your heart pumps slightly less efficiently, and your body processes sugar and sodium more slowly. That means what you eat before bed can have a bigger impact on your nighttime blood chemistry, and therefore your stroke risk, than it did when you were younger. The solution isn't to go hungry at night, but to choose foods that keep your blood sugar stable, your vessels relaxed, and your body hydrated without overloading it with sodium or stimulants. Here are some excellent alternatives. Fresh berries, blueberries, strawberries, and raspberries are low in sugar, high in antioxidants, and gentle on blood sugar. They also contain compounds that help maintain vessel flexibility. Avocado slices, rich in potassium and heart-healthy fats, avocado can help balance blood pressure and keep you satisfied without a glucose spike. Plain Greek yogurt, unsweetened, offers protein for satiety and probiotics for gut health. Choose low-sodium versions and avoid added sugars. Raw, unsalted nuts, small portion. Almonds or walnuts in limited quantities provide healthy fats and magnesium without the sodium overload of roasted or flavored varieties. Chamomile tea, naturally calming, supports sleep quality and has mild anti-inflammatory effects without caffeine. Sliced cucumber or celery with hummus provides crunch and hydration while being low in sodium and sugar if you choose a no salt added hummus. Along with choosing the right snacks, timing matters. Aim to finish eating at least 90 minutes before bed so your body has time to process the food before your circulation slows during sleep. This reduces the chances of overnight glucose spikes, blood pressure elevations, and digestive discomfort that can disrupt rest. Here are 3 simple rules for nighttime eating after. Rule 1. Avoid high sodium and high sugar foods within 2 hours of bedtime. Rule 2. Pair carbohydrates with protein or healthy fats to slow absorption and prevent spikes. Rule 3. Stay hydrated throughout the day so you're not drinking large amounts right before bed, which can interrupt sleep. I've seen countless seniors transform their health simply by changing what and when they eat at night. Small shifts, like swapping juice for herbal tea or salted nuts for fresh berries, can make a profound difference in your morning blood pressure readings and your long-term stroke risk. Remember, knowledge is power. The goal isn't to make you fearful of food, but to help you make choices that allow your brain and heart to rest as peacefully as you do. Every evening, snack is an opportunity to protect your health for the years ahead. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, every choice you make tonight shapes the health you'll have tomorrow.